Welcome to the deep dive. We're here to unpack complex topics, really pull out those key insights you need to be, well, truly informed. Today, we're diving headfirst into something pretty fundamental, a concept many of us think we know, the fall of angels. But yeah, maybe get ready to question what you think you know. We're exploring a radically different take on it today. Our deep dive is pulling from some fascinating excerpts from H.P. Blavatsky's The Secret Doctrine, Volod went into Anthropogenesis, specifically stanza 10. Our mission really is to navigate this esoteric viewpoint, completely reinterprets things like human evolution, consciousness, even the role of, divine beings. This isn't just about dusting off old texts, it's about looking at history, humanity, maybe even good and evil through a completely new lens. Now, fair warning, we will hit some very specific terms from this tradition, but we'll do our best to make these big ideas clear and accessible for you.
Absolutely. What's really captivating, I think, is how these ancient ideas offer such a different perspective on things we thought were, well, settled. They really push us to reconsider our basic assumptions about theology, history, maybe even our own origins, and it feels surprisingly relevant, actually.
So let's start with the setting for early humanity. As these ancient shlokas, or verses, describe it, it talks about a major shift, a transition from what's called a third root race to the fourth, the Atlanteans. And the verses actually track a sequence of racial colors. It's quite striking. Started as moon-colored, like a yellow-white, then yellow, like gold, then red, and finally brown, which, it says, later became black with sin. The text mentions an initial one complexion for the 7 human shoots, but then as subraces developed, the colors started mixing.
Right, and that leads into a really pivotal phrase in the text. The gods became no gods. Sura became asura. Now, the key thing to grasp here is that this isn't your typical fall from grace narrative. It's not about moral failure or divine anger. It's more about a profound, energetic, spiritual shift for humanity itself. Our transition from being, let's say, semi-ethereal to being fully physical. And this shift, according to the commentaries Blavatsky draws on, wasn't just random. It involved the huge, deliberate sacrifice by the divine beings guiding our evolution.
Wow, that completely reframes it. A fall that wasn't a punishment, but maybe a necessary step, even a benevolent one for evolution. How did that actually play out?
Exactly. So the commentaries explain that when the third root race became physiologically ready, basically, when they separated into sexes, could reproduce physically a group of celestial beings, the Dharanis had a job to do. Their task was to incarnate into these early human forms.
Right.
Why? To give these, well, still rather mindless humans conscious egos. Mind.
Okay. And you mentioned 2 groups within these creative hierarchies.
Yes, 2 distinct groups. First, you have the obedient angels. They immediately followed the cosmic plan, the evolutionary law. They used this power called Kriya Sakti, which is basically the power to create using just thought and will, like divine magic almost, to create a semi-divine man. This being, the text suggests, was like the seed for all future spiritual guides, the adepts.
Okay, so the obedient ones got straight to work, but then the rebellious ones, what was their deal?
Right, the rebellious angels. Now, their delay wasn't simple disobedience. The text calls it profound foresight. They had the wisdom to see the deep consequences of creating humans without real free will, without true self-consciousness. They saw that would just lead to, well, puppets. Maybe beautiful, but not really alive in the conscious sense.
That's a really interesting distinction, but if it was foresight, if it was ultimately good for us, why did they get a karmic penalty? That still sounds like punishment, doesn't it?
That's a fair question, and it's subtle. The penalty wasn't like a cosmic judge saying you were bad. It was more a natural consequence of timing, of delaying their role in the evolutionary schedule. So those who incarnated later in the third race got bodies that were maybe less refined, less suited to pure spirit because humanity's physical form was already densifying. And those who waited even longer until the fourth race, the Atlanteans, who were already, quote, physiologically tainted with sin, meaning fully physical, subject to material desires and maybe excesses, decade, they incurred a far more terrible karmic cause. They essentially took on the denser karma of humanity, becoming carriers of this seed of iniquity. It meant a harder path for them spiritually.
Ah, okay, so the rebellion wasn't sin, it was deliberate self-sacrifice for us. And these rebels, you're saying, are identified with some magi figures, fire divas, Rudras, even archangels Michael and Gabriel. That's pretty stunning.
It is. They apparently understand that creating will-less beings, which is sort of what the obedient ones did initially, would trap humanity in a kind of static, dreamlike state. Automatons, basically. So if we connect this to the bigger picture, it completely redefines sacrifice. divine purpose. These rebellious beings, these celestial yogis, chose the curse of incarnation. They willingly chose the painful cycles of life on Earth over just watching us exist as mere shadows, without real consciousness.
Wow.
They gave up their sidereal bliss, their pure spiritual state, to give us individual personality. They endured the limitations of flesh to give us self-awareness, feelings, hopes, and crucially, personal responsibility.
And this incredibly profound act then gets twisted.
Exactly, twisted by later, more literal exoteric religions into the story we know. Rebel angels thrown out of heaven into hell. Though it's interesting, the text notes that Hindu philosophy kind of hints at this deeper truth with Tihoras, who are seen as beings in a sort of transitional state working towards purification from matter.
This leads us right into maybe the most provocative part, rethinking Satan. Not evil, but wisdom. How does the text even begin to bridge that gap, given how ingrained the idea of Satan as pure evil is for so many?
Yeah, that's the radical part. The argument is that Western theology, being very dualistic and insisting only God can create, kind of had to invent an opposing independent creative force, Satan, to explain imperfection or apparent opposition to the divine will. But in much older thought systems, the serpent, falling from heaven wasn't evil. It symbolized wisdom descending.
Okay, this is where my brain starts to bend a little. The text actually interprets Jesus saying he saw Satan falling like lightning from heaven.
It interprets that image as the descent of the divine ray of wisdom, the logos. Think universal minds or divine reason into human minds. That descent is what sparked conscious life in humanity. So these incarnating spirits of universal mind, or Mahat, are the angels fallen into generation. They're metaphorically called serpents and dragons of wisdom precisely because they brought knowledge down into the material world. And here's the twist. As the opponent of ignorance, the Logos is simultaneously Satan, the adversary to spiritual blindness, and Lucifer, the lightbringer. The text puts it beautifully. The Logos is passive wisdom in heaven and conscious self-active wisdom on earth. It's divine intelligence made active here.
And this connects to a marriage, the heavenly man and the virgin of the world.
Exactly. That union of spirit, heavenly man, and matter, virgin of the world nature, results in immortal self-conscious man, like in the ancient text Pymander. St. John's revelation with the marriage of the Lamb is seen as a later, maybe less understood, echo of this much older concept. And another text Blavatsky uses, Dr. Kingsford's The Perfect Way, adds more layers. It calls Satan the dominion of the outermost sphere, meaning connected to the manifest physical world, the furthest reach from pure spirit. He's the adversary, not because he's evil, but because matter opposeth the spirit. The very nature of physical existence creates a tension with pure spirit. It's necessary for consciousness. He's even described as the agent of cosmic law, the magistrate of the justice of God, karma. He holds the balance in the sword, deals with weight and measure and number.
That sounds like Kabbalah.
It is. Those are attributes of the Sephiroth, which form Adam Kadmon, the universal man, essentially, the Logos again.
So he's called the angel of the manifest worlds, even the god of our planet. That's strong language. And his shame is generation, losing his virginal estate.
Yeah. But again, not moral shame. It refers to the act of bringing pure spirit into generation in the physical form. In doing so, the Logos, metaphorically, lost its purely spiritual, unmanifest state. It's the same sacrifice the Kumaras made, giving up bliss for incarnation. And the text says the armies of God include both Michael's host in the manifest and Satan's legions in the abyss, the manifest world. Both serve the divine, just different roles.
Fundamentally different ways of seeing things.
Completely reshapes the cosmic order, yeah.
So what does this mean for how we view the adversary, then, if we follow this line of thought?
Well, according to this perspective, cursing Satan means cursing God's reflection in the cosmos. It means rejecting wisdom itself, which manifests as both light and shadow, good and evil. The text concludes, the glory of Satan is the shadow of the Lord. The shadow is necessary for the light to even be perceived.
Wow. Okay. Let's shift gears slightly. This intricate view of consciousness, how did it actually come together? The text talks about integrating principles from different cosmic planes, symbolism of suns and fires.
Yes, it's described as a very precise architecture. The Kabbalistic view, for example, talks about a central spiritual sun plus three others, polar, equatorial, and our visible sun. These aren't just stars. They're seen as cosmic organs whose energies drive evolution on Earth.
And Eastern doctrines map these to human principles.
Right. The central and polar suns are linked to bestowing Atma, the seventh principle, universal spirit. The equatorial sun helps link Buddhi, the sixth principle, the spiritual soul, to Atman, and also to the higher aspects of Manas. And our visible sun spirit gives us manas, the fifth principle, our conscious mind, our ego and its vehicle. Kamarupa, the fourth principle, the body of desires and passions.
And then Earth itself provides the lower stuff, body, life force.
The lower triad, exactly. The physical body, the life principle, prana, and the astral model body, linga sharira, the sort of ethereal blueprint.
Okay, so all these principles, but the text emphasizes the middle ones. Why are they so crucial?
Ah, yes, the necessity of the middle principles. This is key. The top two, Atma Buddhi, the pure spiritual monad, our divine spark, they can't really stick to earthly existence on their own. They need, well, glue, a bridge.
And the ancient book of Jan asks, where was the pivot, the middle principle, manas? Man is doomed, so without that middle part.
We couldn't be us. The commentary is clear. Without the middle principles, the higher spirit just disconnects from physical life. To be human, you need manas, the mind, the ego, to know yourself and the world. And you need kamarupa, the desire body, the will, which acts as the pivot, anchoring spirit to form.
Without those, even with a potentially brilliant mind and a perfect body, nothing.
A soulless idiot, as the text bluntly puts it, incapable of self-aware thought on this plane. It's these two middle principles that create our duality. The enduring, immortal ego versus the temporary animal-human soul tied to desires. The whole complex process is allegorized in the Hindu Puranas, the curse of Vasishta on the three fires, condemning them to be born over and over again. This fire of friction symbolizes the joining of Buddhi and Manas, which compel the divine flames, Asuras, Rishis, Kumaras, to incarnate and finish the job of making us self-conscious.
Which really makes you think, doesn't it? What does it mean for who we are if our very consciousness is built like this, layer upon layer?
It suggests our awareness is definitely not accidental. It's a very specific, intricate spiritual construction.
Okay, so if consciousness is constructed this way, what about our physical bodies? This leads to a radical challenge to, well, Darwin, right? The Secret Doctrine talks about modified polygenesis, single divine origin, but born in different places on Lemuria.
Yes, 7 different centers, leading to varied forms and abilities, basically suitable vehicles for the reincarnating monads, the divine sparks needing experience.
And the color progression, moon-colored to brown, is simplified into 3 main groups: red-yellow, black, and brown-white.
That's the simplification given. Red-yellow linked to ancestors of Native Americans and Mongolians. Brown-white to the stock that produced the Aryan fifth root race. And there's that allegory of Siva transforming some who became black with sin into these other groups. It's presented as veiled ethnology.
Now the big one. Esoteric teachings embrace evolution but reject Darwinism on human origins. How does that work?
They argue the Puranas, read esoterically, actually contain accurate accounts of cosmic and organic evolution, just veiled in allegory, like Brahma as a boar for geological changes or genealogies outlining species order.
But what about the scientific evidence?
Well, the text points to things science did observe, even back then, like persistent types. Organisms like certain corals or scorpions that haven't changed much for millions of years. This challenges the idea of constant linear change for everything. And man, the text argues, is also a persistent type, citing ancient skeletons that seem physically superior in some ways.
And embryology. We supposedly relive our evolutionary past in the womb.
The occult view agrees the embryo reflects lower kingdoms, stone becomes plant, beast, man, etc. But critically, it's seen as reflecting the monad's journey through those kingdoms in previous evolutionary rounds, not our direct physical ancestry in this round.
Okay, let's unpack this then. The ape. Is the ape not our ancestor? This really does flip the script on common understanding.
It absolutely does. The text is quite explicit. The truth is the reverse. The ape is described as an accidental creation, a hybrid resulting from unnatural sin, early fourth race humans crossbreeding with an extinct animal form that was apparently large and ape-like, but not their ancestor.
So the ape is younger than humans.
Millions of years younger than speaking man, according to this source. And the egos, the consciousnesses currently in apes are said to be working through karma from a previous cosmic cycle. And get this. In the next great round of evolution, those monads currently in apes will apparently form the lowest human types, just as our monads in the third round inhabited gigantic ape-like forms.
That's a lot to take in. And this explains the missing link, because it doesn't exist as science looks for it.
That's the argument presented, yes. The lineage isn't linear in the way Darwin proposed, so the link is conceptual, related to past rounds, not a direct physical ancestor on this one.
Right, moving towards wrapping up, this brings us to the idea that myths aren't just stories, they're veiled history, like legends of Atlantis, giants, divine teachers.
Exactly. Scholars like Faber and Bailey apparently intuited this. These universal myths are seen as distorted collective memories of real events, real continents like Lemuria and Atlantis, real phases of human development.
And the Greek gods like Uranos, Kronos, Zeus, they're allegories for cosmic evolution.
A perfect allegory, the text suggests. Uranus, space, tries to stop evolution, gets overthrown. Kronos, time, takes over, but destroys his creations, symbolizing matter's failed attempts alone. Then Zeus Jupiter, representing the incarnating mind, overthrows time. He steals the divine fire like Prometheus, kick-starting the age of conscious, responsible humans, the Atlanteans.
And Pandora's box, the fatal gift of sexual generation, is like a consequence, a punishment for getting that fire, binding us to matter.
That's the interpretation offered, yes. These myths are rooted in the real histories of Lemuria and Atlantis. Plato called it initiate, knew this but deliberately obscured details, confusing the two continents to protect the deeper truth.
And the Atlanteans were the titans, the giants of legend.
They were the first truly physical terrestrial human race, yes, and their potentially enormous size and powers are remembered as titans and giants.
So the call here is to be open-minded, to look beyond standard timelines and see myth as maybe holding truths too big for normal history.
Precisely. If we connect this to the bigger picture, it suggests our collective memory, enshrined in myth, might hold far more historical reality than we usually acknowledge. It asks to consider that maybe myth is the memory of truths too profound or ancient for simple linear accounts.
Okay, so we've covered a huge amount of ground, some really challenging, transformative ideas. We looked at the fall of angels not as punishment, but as this incredible conscious sacrifice. Divine beings choosing to descend into matter to give us self-awareness, free will. We explored Satan, totally reimagined, not pure evil, but maybe a principle of cosmic wisdom, a necessary adversary to ignorance, a light bringer tied to our existence in the physical world.
Yeah, the shadow of the Lord concept.
Right. And then a completely different story for human evolution. Humans not from apes, but the other way around, tied to past cosmic cycles and some unnatural ancient events.
Definitely a deep dive that challenges basic assumptions about good and evil, about evolution itself, about why we're even here, conscious. It frames human consciousness not as some lucky accident, but as this deliberate, incredibly intricate gift given through immense sacrifice, part of a vast cosmic blueprint.
Which leaves us with a final thought, something for you to really chew on. If these ancient myths, these esoteric texts, hold such deep, veiled truths about how consciousness evolved, about the sacrifices made for us to have it, what does that imply about our choices now? Our responsibility, maybe, within this whole intricate web of existence? And what about our future evolution? What other truths, might we be dismissing right now, just calling them fiction without realizing their deeper significance?